feeling so hard. Summer rhythms play, we're gonna thrive. Go, 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 oh, shout it out loud. In the summer sun, we're a summer-loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing the passion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking Brazil Ball, the podcast all about Brazilian football. We're back for yet another preview show as we continue the countdown to the 2025 Brasileirão. I'm your host, James, and I'm here as ever with my co-host, George. George, another week, another preview. How are you doing this time?
Yeah, come by, James. How are you? And to everybody listening, come by as well. I'm doing okay, thank you very much. Yeah, as always, ready for another week. Looking at some, four more teams and how they're shaping up for the season. It's forever coming closer. So yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, we've got the evening's getting lighter, so it's just about still light. It's almost dark, but it's still kind of getting there. Spring's coming, which means, of course, the start of the Brazilian football season and almost the end of the European season. But it's there is a bit in the kind of middle where they meet, isn't there, where the two are both going on. So we've got a lot to keep occupied off from March 30th. But so we're into March now, Georgia. We're into the month of the kickoff, obviously, of the Brasileirão, but we're still not there yet. So we're looking at four teams as we have done for the last couple of weeks, and just as you mentioned there, seeing how their preparations are coming for the new season. Have you got a quiz for us today based on one of the teams, George? And do you want to introduce the teams before we play the latest Talking Brazil Ball band installment?
Yes, of course, James. Absolutely. And I must admit, I thought you'd be coming on with your hair bleached blonde and a bit curly job today in celebration of that winner yesterday. But obviously,
well, I'd rather go. You mean Harvey Elliott style? I'd
yes.
never go that in my life. I'd rather go the Alisson Becker with the curly hair with the headband. He always has a different look, Alisson, and it was a really particularly strong one last night. And an incredibly strong performance from Liverpool. Things going well as we continue a march to hopefully a title and maybe even more. But that's not what we're here to talk about, George. Although Alisson, of course, does come in under our purview and had an incredible performance. So great to see him, and he's been called up to the latest Brazil squad as well, of course. But back to the match at hand. Have you got a quiz for us or not?
Yeah, well, no, absolutely, James. You know what I'm like. I like to bring them out every week. So it's
a bit of a quiz master, right?
It's a bit of a tradition nowadays, isn't it? So I do have one for you and for everybody listening if they want to join in and pause it and have a go, whatever. I don't know how it works, but it might work along, playing back along. So yeah, today's quiz, James, we're looking at, it's actually incorporating two of the teams we're looking at today. It's a bit of a double-barreled one, as it often is now, nowadays. But Gremio, who we are looking at today, James, they have appointed a new manager. Of course, he's been there for about 2 months now. He was appointed on New Year's Day. The Bolivian Gustavo Quinteros. It's his first taste of Serie A with Gremio. He was Argentine-born man, just turned 60 a few weeks ago. But the question to you, James, he was a former Bolivian international, represented them 26 times, including at the 1994 World Cup in America. Now, what I want to know, the first part of the question is, James, obviously Brazil won that World Cup. Who was managing Brazil for that particular World Cup win?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it might have been the guy who died recently, but I can't remember his name. He won it as a player and then as a manager, but I don't know. Yeah, don't know. Should know, but don't know.
Yes, it's Carlos Alberto Pereira.
All right, okay. So, yeah, he did die recently, I think, didn't he? He scored in the final. Was it Carlos Alberto who scored in the final? 1970.
I'm not sure actually on that one. James, you might be right.
Carlos,
But
there's that many Carlos Albertos.
I did this man's not died. He's in his early 80s.
Oh, fair play.
But yeah, managed Brazil in 1983, again in 1991 to 1994.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
then
not the guy I'm thinking of at all. I
no,
can't remember the name of him. He did win a World Cup and he won it as a player as well. I can't remember his name. And then there was a Carlos Alberto. Was it Carlos Alberto scored in the final? Very famous goal in the final. Yeah, it is Carlos Alberto. Carlos Alberto Torres. Yeah, scored one of the most famous World Cup final goals. But yeah, it's not him. So confusing question, huh?
it's only confusing if you want it to be. But yes, I suppose it is. It's a relatively common name. Also, there is an offshoot to that question as well. So I think, as far as I can see, has managed 7 Brazilian clubs, one including Fluminense. But how many times did he manage Fluminense, James? It's multiple, but how many times did he manage them?
I don't know. 4.
You're close. He managed them 5 times
Wow, that's a lot.
on 5 separate occasions. He also managed the likes of RB Bragantino, Sao Paulo, Galo, Santos, Inter, Corinthians. He's managed a heck of a lot of teams in Brazil. But there's your question, James. There's your quiz for this week.
Very good indeed. So that incorporated, like you said, 2 of the teams we're looking at this week. So they are George Fluminense, Fortaleza, Gremio, and Inter. So 4 big clubs, or 4 clubs who might have aspirations towards the top end of the Brasileirão this year. And as I mentioned, the Talking Brazil Ball Band have been back in the studio, and they do have a new song for us. So everybody sit back and enjoy this one, which is called Fluge.
Fluminense, Fortaleza, Gremio, Inter. Let's see how they get on this season in Serie A. Fluminense, Fortaleza, Gremio.
There we go. That was the Talking Brazil Ball brand with Fluge. And first of those teams, George, is Fluminense. So you're going to take a quick look at Fluminense, aren't you? They've obviously had a really tumultuous kind of year. We're getting rid of Denise. I can't remember when it was. It must have been kind of the Easter time. No, maybe later, maybe summertime, was it? He started last season as the head coach, having won the Copa Libertadores, ended up dragging them into a relegation battle, got sacked. Mano Menezes came in, righted the ship, and eventually kept them up. So how are they shaping up heading into what they will hope will be a better season?
Yeah, I mean, they're looking actually very, very good going into it, James, and like I said, it was a horrendous season. We came on week after week, it seemed, and kept, blasting them and saying how poor they were. They just kept losing. Denise, like you said, it just didn't work, did it? He had such a good ending to the year, won the Libertadores, like you said, the previous year. Didn't work at all, and ultimately Mano managed to get them into the 13th place finish, which was really good for where they were for the majority of the season, weren't they? They were right near the bottom end, weren't they? So relegation zone a lot of the time. So yeah, but as far as the preparations are going, extremely well, James. We're actually of the 14 games they've played since the close of the 2024 Brasileirão season, they've only lost twice. And they've won 7 of those games. They finished 7th in the Carioca, which is obviously their regional competition. I think Flamengo won it, didn't they? But yeah, they've won 7. They've won 7 of those games, and yeah, they're going really, really well, including a thumping of Agia di Maraba. I don't know what division they're in or what level they're playing at, but an they won 8-0 in the Copa do Brasil. Also followed that up with a win on Wednesday against Caxias, also in the Copa do Brasil. It was a 2-1 win. And Cano got 2 goals in that game. Cano has been on really good form in the Carioca, 5 goals in 8 games. As far as sort of recruitment's concerned, I think we spoke a bit about Otavio, didn't we, coming in from Galo, and Everaldo as well. I think he's a decent pickup from Bahia. He also, he can score a goal on his day. I think that's a decent signing, really. But also there's one of our favourite lads who had a really poor season, to be honest with you, James. Along with his team of last season, Canobio, Augustin Canobio is now with Fluminense. So he's probably going to pick up a little bit, I would have said, playing with better players. No disrespect to PR, but obviously I think Fluminense's squad is a much better, higher level than Paranense was last season. So in terms of players gone out, there's not very many you can really look at and say they will be missed. One that did go out is Mr. John Kennedy, who was causing a lot of issues, if you remember correctly, James. He was interrupting a lot of things. He seemed a little bit of a bad apple, didn't he, in the pack? So he's gone out on loan to Mexican side Pachuca. So let's see how he gets on in there. But yeah, I think ultimately and overall, James, I think they'll do all right. I think the preparations are going quite well. I think Mano has them quite solid. They don't seem to concede that many. All right, they don't score so many, obviously, they did put 8 past that side there, but, in the Brazil, if you remember, I don't think they scored a tremendous amount, really, last season. They only got, 33 goals, which is not too many, really, so they'll be looking to improve on that. But ultimately, yeah, I think Mano will have them doing quite well.
Yeah, John Kennedy started really well for Pachuca. I saw some clips of him going around social media. He started well, 7 goals in 10 games. So the Mexican League is a good level as well, to be fair. So it's kind of just shows maybe the environment wasn't quite right for him. I think one thing you didn't mention there, George, is that they did also lose Kawa Elias.
Yes.
Mobio has kind of been brought in, I think, as a kind of a help. And Everaldo, obviously, they've lost 2 there. John Kennedy, albeit he wasn't playing a lot, and then Kawa Elias, and they've brought in Everaldo and Canobio. So on paper, maybe not a better duo, but in fairness, when you look at the goals scored, it's probably an upgrade in some ways. I mean, Elias obviously had an incredibly good run last season, and you could argue that he ultimately kept them up. Kawa Elias, he seemed to be scoring important goals, winning goals for a period. He seemed to score every single week, didn't he? But he's gone to Shakhtar, so as we said, a bit of a disappointing one. But he will be a miss because he was a focal point for them, wasn't he? I think another one that caught my eye, George, was Marcelo Pitaluga, who's gone from Liverpool as a goalkeeper. He joined Liverpool from Flu. I don't know what it was now. It was 4 or 5 years ago as a young goalkeeper, and it never really worked out for him at Liverpool. Spent some time in the lower divisions in England and Scotland, and never really seemed to convince. So he's 22 now, but it doesn't look as though he's going to be the first choice. It's still going to be Fabio, George. He's 44. I mean, he's half his age. And, I had a bit of beef with Fabio last year. I don't think he's good enough. And I really am surprised that they haven't cut the ties and started again with a new keeper.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty amazing that it did caught my eye. It did catch my eye as well. Petaluga as well coming, but I just thought, well, he's not. He's like you said, he's not going to be number one, is he? Fabio, I mean, it's incredible. He's half his age and he's 44 and he's still going. He's played 8 games in the Carioca, 3 clean sheets, James. So you can't really knock him too badly for the starting there. Obviously,
look at the kind of teams are playing in the Carioca.
True.
Half the time, garbage teams. He's going to cost them.
True.
I made a bold prediction about Flu last year that they'll win it. This time, I'm going to say Fabio will cost them this season.
Well, Fabio will if he keeps playing him, won't he? I mean, look, they start away at Fortaleza. The first home game is on April 6th, a month from now. RB Bragantino. So, it's a quite kind start. You know, Santos is in there at home, Corinthians away, and then Vitoria at home is the first 5. So it's quite a relatively one that eases them into the season. I think they might do okay. I kind of like the way that Mano sets them up, and they seem to have been getting away from the kind of like I said, the bad apples. Carol Elias is a blow, isn't he? Like you said, I think we're both a little bit disappointed. Where he's picked his destination to be as well a little bit, but that's up to him, and I think he'll be a miss. But yeah, I think ultimately they've got away from those older crowd a little bit. You know, Marcelo was causing issue, wasn't he, as well? So they managed to get rid of him. So it's looking a little bit better there for them going into this season. And I'm going to go with, I know you're going to ask me for a prediction, James.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 7th. I don't think they'll be quite pushing up to the...
You can't go 7th, unfortunately. You've got Corinthians in 7th.
Oh, okay.
You're pointing out were beaten last night in the Copa Libertadores qualification comfortably by Barcelona. You've got Corinthians in 7th. You've also got Cruzeiro in 6th and Red Bull Bragantino in 8th. So 6th, 7th, and 8th have gone. So you can go 5th or you can go 9th.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go lower and I won't go high. I'll go 9th then.
Well, yeah, you've got to go 9th, yeah.
Yeah, I think because I don't think they'll be 5th. I don't think I'll be too high. Maybe I've shot it too quickly with the other predictions, but I don't know. I think they'll do all right. I mean, 9th is an improvement on last time, isn't it? Anyway, so
yeah, Yeah, let's see. I don't know if they'd be happy with that, but I think it might help them in some ways that they don't have any continental competition. Perhaps their schedule will be less than the other teams. Good luck at Flu there, and Mano will be hoping to certainly get off to a better start than Denise did last season. Thank you for that, George. Let's move on to Fortaleza, who had a very opposite kind of season last time out, ended up finishing 4th. Under Juan Pablo Voivoda, who is, of course, still there, George, still going strong. I don't know if we gave him the manager of the season in the end, but I can't remember what we did, but he was certainly in the conversation, wasn't he? I think we must have done.
Yeah, we gave him, I think we both picked. I think you gave him it. I gave it to...
Vittoria.
Yeah, to Carpini, yeah.
Yeah. Well, either way, he did a great job. I mean, the trouble is how do you follow that up, basically? They didn't have a bad year the year before that, but they weren't expected to be in those top 4 places. So now the expectation, you'd imagine, I don't football fans are realistic to some degree, but everybody wants to kick on, don't they? So the truth, I think, is that it's going to be very hard for them to do that. But Voivoda's still there. Obviously, he's got a pretty settled squad. They've started pretty well in the kind of the Copa del Nordeste, which is obviously the regional competition. Hard to get a grip on exactly what's going on in that, to be honest. But they did lose against Vitoria 2-1 recently. They also lost to somebody else as well, to Altos, who are obviously a lower division side as well. So they've had a couple of poor defeats, but in amongst that, they've had some kind of handsome wins as well. So they beat Inter 3-0 at the last day of last season, didn't they? So that was a good way to end the season, and it kind of set a marker down for how they probably hope to do this time out, George. But I don't know, looking at the squad, it's very similar to the way it kind of ended the season, which you can look at as a good thing, that they didn't lose anybody in particular, really, but they didn't really add too much either. One player that you didn't mention there has left actually for Fluminense, Hercules, which is quite a biggish signing, about 4 million euros, right at the end of December. Defensive midfielder who played a lot for Fortaleza last season, 47 appearances, scored 7 goals all competition. So he was quite a fixture in their team, and he's joined Flu. So he's a bit of a loss probably, really. But they have brought in a couple of higher profile names. David Luiz, I mean, who knows really? I didn't think he'd had a great time with Flamengo, kind of, really, but he was still in there, wasn't he? He was still playing a reasonable amount. Very experienced, of course, and he's always somebody who you can easily kind of see stands out, and he's obviously got huge experience. So maybe a player like that coming in for a Libertadores campaign, it can be seen as a positive, but I think I would like to see them go out and buy show a bit more ambition. Really, it was a free transfer from Flamengo. They've also got Gaston Avila, who is from Ajax, is on loan from Ajax. He's been around the Dutch league and Belgian league a little bit. He's an Argentine on loan from Ajax, so perhaps he'll be a bit of quality. He's a centre back as well with David Luiz, and then they've got another centre back as well, Kuskovic. From Curitiba, so he was almost $1 million, so he was relatively kind of expensive. Although he was on loan last year anyway, so forget him. But yeah, not too many changes, George. I don't know where to predict Fortaleza this year, to be honest, but just because the Libertadores will stretch them, you'd imagine. It was good for them that they didn't need to go through the qualification, but obviously they won't be quite used to that level. Although they have been in the continental competition, I think in the past, it's not like they're completely new to it, but obviously it will be relatively new in terms of Libertadores. So I don't know how you see it going. For me, there'll likely be a natural drop off from where they were last season.
Yeah, I agree completely, James. I think it'll be not just a drop off. I think it'll be quite a. They finished fourth, didn't they? So I think it'll be a bit of a landslide in terms of dropping off. I don't see them being able to, like like you said, the squad. Yeah, David Luiz you could say is a standout, but like he said, he didn't really have a really good season last time with Flamengo, and I think it's just purely the name that he's still going off. Really, as you would say, a big signing, really. And I don't know how well they're gonna. I don't know how well they're going to cope with, with the Libertadores and all the games that they have to play, and the quality that is probably going to improve this season. I think in the league in the Brasileirão. So I think they'll finish mid-table. I'm going to go 10th. I don't think they'll. I just don't think they'll. I don't think they'll do much. If I can go 10th, I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You're all right in 10th. Yeah. So Fortaleza in 10th.
Yeah, and again,
the higher positions and there's still most of the lower, like the bottom half to go.
Well, I know, but So, but I don't think they're gonna I think fifth is the only one I've kind of got really in the kind of around the sort of top end, and I don't think they'll finish fifth, and then the rest of it's full, isn't it? So I'm gonna have to go.
You've got second.
But they're not going to go. Yeah, they're not going to go there. Rather, I just think, even if I didn't, I think they'll finish off. Yeah, obviously, I'm putting them mid-table, but I think it'll be lower. It'll be higher mid-table if it's not mid-table, sort of 7th to 10th kind of thing.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's a good season for them at that point, really, and that's when Vojvoda can become a bit of a victim of his own success.
Yeah,
you're not going to better it, but people would still like you to better it, and then if you kind of revert back, you're seen as doing a bad job, so you can't really win in a way. But maybe a chance, maybe a deep cup run, that might be the way to go for them, just to kind of consolidate and have a go at Libertadores, have a go in the Copa do Brasil and see if they can get some silverware. Because based on the form last season, they were good enough to do that. And we've spoken obviously about Ceará last week. And they're new into the league as Fortaleza's city rivals, so that might just add an extra bit of spice for them. I don't know how it'll affect them, obviously, in the general wider picture, but it'll be interesting to see, that dynamic, because we obviously didn't see it last year. So that's going to be something to look out for in terms of Fortaleza, and their home form, obviously, as we know, was incredible. They were unbeaten at Castelao. So let's see how the Ceará coming up affects that. Anything else you wanted to add on Fortaleza, George, before we move along to the two kind of bigger, well, no, Flu are bigger, aren't they? But the two Porto Alegre giants, it's nice to have them both in the same show.
Yeah, it is definitely, James. But yeah, I'd just like to say I am a big fan of Vojvoda. I hope he still continues to, push on. But like you said, I think I'm in the similar sort of thinking as you. I think he might have, made a rod for his own back in a way. The expectations rise, and I don't think quite I'm not too impressed with the sort of business they've done, and I just don't see them pushing any higher, really. In terms of the Ceará derby, Fortaleza derby, 13th of July, James, is the date for your diary for that one. Fortaleza are the home team, in inverted commas, in that game for the first meeting of the season, and then I'm not sure when the next one is. Oh, the 30th of November, so the back end of the season, really, towards the back end of the year. So, yeah, that's definitely one to watch.
Yep, and as you said, I think they start at Flu, don't they? So
Yes,
that'll
they
be a
do.
decent
Yeah.
marker for those two teams who will be,
It's a home match for Fortaleza. So, like you mentioned, their home form could kick on with that would be a big win if they can get that. Because I think, like I said, I think Fluminense will be sort of in and around, knocking on the door in some sense. And then it's a pretty kind start, to be fair. Mirasol is the first away game. Then they've got Inter, which is a big one, and then Vitoria. So the first sort of 4 or 5. I mean, Palmeiras is the next one on, but yeah, it's not too bad, that really, is it?
No, chance to set out in the right way, definitely. Okay, George, let's take a quick break then and listen to the dulcet tones of the Tom Brazil Ball Band. And then when we come back, we're going to look at like I said, the two Porto Alegre giants, Gremio and my boys Inter.
Fluminense, Fortaleza, Gremio, Inter. Let's see how they get on this season in Serie A.
There we go. Yeah, let's see how they get on indeed. Welcome back, everybody. And let's talk about Gremio, George. So, like Flu, a difficult season really for Gremio, not the way that they would have envisioned following up, coming as runners-up in 2023 for sure. They did ultimately get rid of Renato Gaucho. I remember there was that poll at the end of the season, which was incredibly tight. The fans were still kind of backing him, but in many ways, it felt like the right time to make a change. And as you mentioned at the top of the show there, Gustavo Quinteros, the Bolivian, has come in. So what can you tell us about him, and what can you tell us about how Gremio is shaping up ahead of the new year?
Well, it's a bit mixed, really, James. I mean, they've done okay, to be quite fair. They've won more than they've lost in the regional competition there. But I don't know, really. I mean, Quinteros, like I said, it's the first taste of Brazilian football. He has been absolutely everywhere, James. Other than he's never been to Europe, but he's been everywhere. He's been Argentina. Like I said, he was born in Argentina, but recently, up until December of last year, he was managing for Vélez Sarsfield, which is an Argentinian side. He's been to Chile. He's been to Mexico. He's been to Saudi Arabia. He's managed some national teams, Ecuador, and his native Bolivia as well. So he's been
Colo on there as well.
It was Colo, obviously Chile. He was Colo manager for just over 3 years. So yeah, he was there for a little bit of time. Then he went on to, like I said, Vélez Sarsfield, and he's been there for just under a year. And now here he is with Gremio. He's, like I said, his first taste of Brazilian football. Just turned 60, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. So he's a very, very, very experienced coach. But you just don't know how it's going to go, do you? You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not sure of the success that he might have had. Actually, I think he's won a few titles. Actually, to be fair. I think he actually won the Argentinian league last season. Yeah, he did. So, he won the league there last time. He's won a few titles with Colo, like you mentioned, James, as well with Universidad Católica, so in Chile as well. So he's won. He's got some credentials, definitely. So it's interesting to see how that translates to Gremio and to the Brasileirão. In terms of the transfers in, it hasn't really been that they've, got a few in, but no real ones that really catch your eye. I've shocked a little bit at Vitoria with Lucas Esteves and Wagner Leandro coming in, 2 defensive players. The interesting one for me, James, and I don't know if you've seen this, is a man coming on from Anderlecht in Belgium, the Belgian fella Francis Amuzu, who, always interested to see European players come and play in Brazil. He made the move from Anderlecht, played over 250 games for Anderlecht in the Jupiler League. We know all about that, don't we, James, I suppose? Striker, Oh, he's playing on the left wing also, but yeah, he hasn't actually played yet. He's been injured, but sorry, he has played twice. So we'll see how he gets on in Serie A, like the song says. And yeah, I hope that I hope they do well, because I thought Renato Gaucho, I was right. I thought they were right to stick with him towards the towards the end, and they stuck with him. They finished 14th in the end, which was obviously a massive drop off from second the previous year. But yeah, I think they've still got Martin Braithwaite. He's been on fire as well in the regional competition. I think 5 goals in 5 appearances. So yeah, they've got him. Hopefully, he can fire in some of the goals. But I don't think they're going to really be. I don't think they're going to be challenging towards the top. I wouldn't have said, to be quite honest.
No, they've brought. I mean, that Musa is an interesting one. He's Belgian under-21 international. He's only 25. It's a bit of an odd kind of transfer, that, isn't it? But
Yeah.
an interesting one, like you said. They've also got Christian Oliveira, who's started really well.
Yeah.
2 goals in 3 games from LAFC.
Mm-hmm.
So they look like they've spent a bit, actually. So Oliveira was 4 million. So was Wagner Leonardo, the former Vitoria centre-back, who's joined, and they bought a left-back from Vitoria as well, Lucas Estevez, for almost 1 million. So you put all that together, they've ended up spending quite a bit. They've also lost the goalkeeper, Marquesin, who the Uruguayan who's gone to Boca Juniors. So he was the Argentinian keeper. He was the first choice last year. He was only there for a year, but he was the first choice. So they look like they've brought in a guy called Thiago Volpe, who's Brazilian from Toluca. They're not a Brazilian side, are they? They're a Mexican side. So he looks like the new number one, 4 years old. So always a bit difficult when you bring in a new number one, isn't it? You're not quite sure how things are going to go, if they're going to settle or not. But they did sell Nathan Ribeiro as well, a very talented player. We spoke about him quite a bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
And he's gone to Botafogo, and they made almost 10 million on him. So they've kind of they've done a bit of business. So maybe refreshed the squad a little bit, and with a new manager coming in, who knows? I mean, the manager sounds like he's got a lot of experience, Quinteros. So, like you said, new in Serie A, it can eat these coaches up very quickly, can't it? If they don't start well, you can imagine that he may be up against it very early on. And they start at Gallo, George, at home to Gallo. So, bit of
it's a tasty looking game, that one, to be fair. And they've still got Inter to play, haven't they, in the regional competition? Next Sunday.
Final, that's the final of the Gaucho. So Gremio actually won the last 7 Gaucho. So for Inter, who we're going to touch on, obviously coming up, it'd be a really big deal if they could do that. Obviously, we know they put a lot of importance on these competitions, and for Inter not to win it for so many years when it's essentially a 2-team tournament really is pretty poor. So yeah, that's coming up, I think, in a couple of days, isn't it, George? 8th of March.
It's the 16th of March, James. Oh, sorry, it is the 8th of March. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a 2-game.
Yeah, so two-legged.
It's a 2-legged thing. Yeah, I mean, looking at the fixtures, it's a pretty hard start for Gremio as well, actually. So I think Quinteros, he has to start quickly, otherwise, like you said, he's going to be eaten up. He has on paper, he has the credentials and everything to succeed, but look, they've got Gallo, Flamengo, and Inter all in the first 5 games. The other 2 are against promoted sides, Ceará and Mirassol, both away. So yeah, they need to start quickly for me if he's got any sort of chance. I thought Renato Gaucho, I thought it was a bit of a shame to see him go, because I thought he did a really good job to steer them away from kind of relegation. They've been in the mire recently, haven't they? And they'd only just come up and they finished second. So, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation, like we've spoken with Fortaleza. It was the same with Gremio, potentially. There was a lot of expectation after finishing second. And they just, they threw it really in 14th position in the end. So let's wait and see. He has to start quickly, but it's an interesting appointment, definitely.
Yeah, it is. We'll have to see how he gets on. I mean, sometimes these players come in, managers come in, get appointed, and are sacked after 1 or 2 games based on how they've done in the regional state championships. But they've obviously done pretty well. I think they'll hope to win it for an 8th year in a row. If they don't, I don't think it'll add too much pressure to him. But he'll certainly be after a quick start. Okay, Josh. So moving on from Gremio quickly over to the real champions of Porto Alegre International. My boys, the Colorados, George, were in fantastic form at the end of last season. Didn't manage to sustain that all the way up to the end of the season. We thought they might push the leaders very, very close. In the end, they could only manage 5th. But, from based on where they were, kind of lower mid-table, looking at perhaps a relegation battle going into that second half of the season, they really pulled themselves back up and went on a brilliant run. And obviously the catalyst for that was our mate Roger Mercado, and he is still steering the ship at Inter and steering it very capably. Like I said, they've made light work of the Gaucho. They've been in really good form, and they will hope to finally beat Gremio there. They're unbeaten actually since that last game of last season against Fortaleza, and it's already, I think, about 7 or 8 games, 10 games even, I think, and they're yet to lose. They've only drawn 2 of those, so they've been kind of steadily building up a head of steam going into the season, picked up where they left off, and to be fair, it's largely kind of the same squad. They haven't really made too many changes. They bought a load of left backs, which is a bit weird. I mean, the guy Alexandro Bernabei last year had a really good season with them. As we've looked at, we did the show on the title challenges, didn't we? Where we looked at Inter a little bit in that one. But yeah, Bernabei had a really good year on loan from Celtic. He signed permanently, about €5 million. So kind of a biggish signing from Inter's point of view. They've also bought another left back from Europe, from Midtjylland, Juninho, who's been in Brazilian football for a long time and was at Midtjylland for 4 years or so. He's another left back, so I imagine he'll probably back up to Bernabei. But yeah, there's not loads to go through. I don't think in terms of the transfers, it's been fairly steady. They just brought in the other day Oscar Romero from Botafogo, who wasn't really a key man at Botafogo during their double win last year. He's the twin brother actually of Angel Romero from Corinthians. So Paraguayan, a couple of lads. Yeah, he's a midfielder. Oscar Romero, a bit lower profile than his brother, although he's got 58 caps for Paraguay. I'm not sure how many Angel Romero has, but he would do well to better that. He's got 47 actually. Yeah, Oscar Romero's got more. So there you go. But yeah, he might be a free transfer, I think it was. So maybe want to keep an eye on George. Another boy they bought in centre midfield, Diego Rosa, is on loan from Bahia, which again, there is a lot of these loan moves, isn't there? And it always looks a bit odd if you kind of look at it in terms of Bahia to Inter. Why are you going on loan from to a bigger team? Really, it just doesn't really make sense. But he's one who's been in the City group, so he was at City about 4 years ago. He's only 22. And then he's bounced around Lommel in Belgium. He's been at Vizela, and he came back to Bahia. He signed for Bahia. Obviously, we know the City group links there. Played there a year. Then he went back to Lommel on loan. He did all right, actually, last season in Belgium. So another interesting signing, that centre midfielder, like I said, maybe could it at City, but he could be one he was obviously one who had the talent to go there in the first place, so maybe one to watch. In terms of players out, they did lose Vanderson, who played quite a lot last year, and he's gone to Cruzeiro on a free transfer. And they lost a few more fringe players. Lucas Alario, as we did speak about in the previous episode, has gone back to Argentina with Estudiantes, and he could never really make it work, Lucas Alario. It looked like a good signing alongside Borre and those guys coming in from Europe, but while Borre kind of managed to make it stick second half of the season, Alario never really did. So I don't think he's going to be a huge loss, to be honest. And it's good to see that they kind of cut the losses after one season of his kind of failures. But yeah, I'm expecting good things, I think, from Inter I wouldn't go as far as calling them favourites, as we touched on with Flamengo last week. I think they're probably still the team to beat with, along with Palmeiras. But I don't know what you're thinking, George. I think I know where you're going to place them just because of default, really. But fifth again, I guess.
No, yeah, I think you're going to be wrong, James. I mean, I don't think I did make my prediction for Gremio, actually, thinking about it. So I'll just
No,
do
you
that
didn't.
one quickly
Yeah,
if I could. And then, so I think Gremio will do better than they did last season, but I don't think it'll be too much better. I'm going to go with 11th if I can still have that one there, James.
No, you've got Bahia in 11th.
Oh, well, I'll go 12th then.
Yeah, 12's open.
Yeah, so they're not really too much better. In fact, as Inter, I do just on a side note, James, I do kind of like that Vonderson. I know he didn't play too well last season for Inter, but I kind of like that transfer to Cruzeiro, and they're slowly kind of building up a decent kind of looking side, aren't they? But on another note, Inter, I'm going to go second for them. I think they're going to have a really good season. I really like Mercado. And I think he's just turned the whole thing around. We know his Gremio roots, and and obviously he was at Juventude as well at the start of last season. But he's really, really done incredibly well. And like you said, they've added odd bits of quality here and there. Like you said, Rosa is an interesting, and Romero. I wouldn't imagine they're a complete partnership there, but they could be at times. They're strengthened in the back. Obviously, Bernardi, signed permanently from Celtic. He had a really good end to the season as well, didn't he? He scored a few goals, if I seem to remember correctly. So they've done well up until now with the regional competition, the Gaucho. I think it'll seep into the season starting. Incredibly hard game to start with, obviously, but in terms of my predictions, it's the top two basically. Flamengo against Inter away at the Maracanã, so that's a really difficult start. The other ones, Cruzeiro is the first home game. Again, I think they'll do quite well as well. Fortaleza follows that away, and then it's another big game, a home match with Palmeiras on the 16th of April, James, and then it's the Rio Grande do Sul derby away at Gremio. So it's a difficult start for them, and if they can get through the first five there intact and towards the top end, I think they're going to have a good season. They've actually got back-to-back derby games, James, end of April, first with Gremio and then with Juventude. So that's an interesting way the fixture computer has fallen them this time.
Yeah, big games for Mercado, those ones. Yeah, good. I think, it'd be nice to see them up that high. I think you're not predicting a good season for Palmeiras, but obviously we'll get on to them in. I don't think it'll be next week. I think it might be the week after, mighty, that we do.
I think it's I think it's next week, James.
So next week it'll be, you're right. So next week we'll do Juventude, Mirassol, Palmeiras, and Santos. So two teams we've had a quick look at already. I don't know if you want to, which ones you want to take of those, George. You want to take Juventude, Palmeiras? I'll do the two, the new boys again.
Yeah, if you like, James. I'm the green team then for next week, am I? The green and white.
The green and whites, that's absolutely right. Okay, George, that's the four teams wrapped up. Just before we do finish, I just wanted to get your reaction to the Brazil squad, which has been announced just today, actually, just before we came on air. Dorival Jr. Is still in position, which I think isn't a given necessarily, given how bad they've been at times, Brazil, already under him. I can't remember who they're playing. I don't know if you've got the fixtures there, George, but there's been a new squad, and Neymar is back, is the headline news, of course. Been out for a long while with his injury. He is back. There's a couple of other interesting call-ups as well. Is there anything there that catches your eye? I know that the right back who I mentioned at Flamengo, Wesley, has been called up, his first ever call-up. So that's a good one. Anything else that you're looking at?
We've got Leo Ortiz as well, I think, playing at Flamengo. There's a few homegrown players, Mateus Acuna from Wolves as well. I don't think he's been involved for a little while, maybe, but he might have done. I can't remember.
I think he has.
you know, your favourite man, Joe Linton. I mean, there's a bit of a Geordie feel, isn't there, to it as well, with Bruno Guimaraes as well. João Pedro, interesting inclusion as well, back in the squad. You know, and there's the likes of Rafinha, obviously. I don't know why really he's picked Savinho either, but you know, and you know, Neymar's just a ridiculous pick for me, to be quite honest. And it's literally just because he's playing back in Brazil. There is no other reason why, surely. You know, there can't be any other reason why he's picked him. I think he'll be. I don't think he'll be long gone. I think he'll be not. I think he'll go soon. You know, Donovan Jr. I don't think. I don't think they're really up to scratch at all. And they've got a really tricky couple of games, James. You know, they're playing Colombia next Friday, the 21st. Sorry, a couple of weeks actually, on the 21st. And then they've got Argentina away on the Wednesday, the 26th. So it's a couple of, you know, just short of 3 weeks away. So there's a couple of really big games there. I must admit, I don't think if they don't win either of those games, I wouldn't be surprised to see him gone, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I know there's some disquiet around his leadership, I'm sure, but there's no other candidates really, unless Denise wants to have another crack at it. I don't think they want to go that way. So I think Neymar, I mean, I think he's done quite well at the start of Santos. To be fair, he was always going to get back in the team whenever he was fit enough to do so. He's still a big figurehead for them, and and to be fair, they've missed him a lot. So if they were doing well and playing well without him, I think it would have been a different story. But because they've been struggling, I think they need him, to be honest, and I think he'll come in there and I think he'll do well. He doesn't have to be the main man necessarily. Rafinha's scoring loads. He scored again the other day. He's playing well. Vinicius, I'm not quite sold on. I've never been sold on, but again, he can carry a bit of the load off Neymar. Rodrigo can as well, and Savinho, I don't know. He's done all right at City. I think he's struggled because City have struggled. I think if City had been doing well, I think you'd have seen him doing well. There have been games. If you watch City, he does tend to stand out as somebody who's a bit of a live wire. He doesn't always have the end product, but he's still very young. So there's players around who can help Neymar there. I think the midfield for me is the worry for Brazil. If you look at it, there's no quality really. Gerson is still in there. Andre Trindade, good player, but you know, Wolves are struggling, and I don't think he's been brilliant. Despite what, you know, predictions when he did join the league, I saw some saying he was a signing of the summer and all this kind of rubbish, and he's just not. I don't think he's quite at that level at all. I just think they need better midfield, and then you go Bruno and Joelinton. It's just not good enough for me. So you can point fingers at the manager if you want, but for me, they just don't have the midfielders that you kind of associate with Brazil at the minute.
Well, I completely agree with you, James. It just, out of the disposal he probably has of the quality Brazilian players that he has at his disposal, and he's gone and picked this sort of, you know, I don't understand it. I really, the quality there, yeah, obviously it's a good team for a quality team. You can pick out a quality team from that squad there. But Brazil level, you look at Brazil and you think of Brazil and you think all these fantastic players, and you look at that squad and it's just bang average, really, if you look at it. There's a few sprinklings of quality, but the most majority of it is just bang average players, really. And that's not the sort of thing you associate with Brazilian football. I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased, but you look at the you look at the thing there and you think you immediately Rafinha, who's kind of like one of the main men, isn't he, now for his country and obviously for his club as well, the captain. So he'll be driving them forward. It's interesting to see how Estevao will do. Obviously his impending move to Chelsea, he's coming ever closer now. So interesting, but I just don't think it's. And João Pedro as well. I mean, he isn't exactly pulling up trees with Brighton either. So what kind of squad is? It's a good player, but again, it's the Brazilian national side. You know what I mean? And the quality of it just lacking completely.
Yeah, well, we talked about a year ago when we started this podcast about how the memories of Brazilian football and those big players who we remember from the early late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. And yeah, you look at the kids growing up these days. Who are they going to? I mean, Neymar's their own, but who else have they got to look at in that respect? So that's something to ponder as the international break comes up in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, George, we'll keep doing the shows. So we've got next week, that one that we've mentioned. I think then we've got one more, haven't we?
Yeah, this is the third of 5, James. So I think we've got another week just to fill before the season starts. So yeah, I think.
Well, we might not fill it because I'm actually on holiday that week. So
it might be good.
So,
That works out quite nicely then.
yeah, so we've got
So
next week 13th, then we've got the 20th, then we're away from 22nd until 28th. So yeah, we'll actually probably miss that one. So we'll do 2 more before the season starts, and then thank you for bearing with us, everybody, and we get stuck into the real action in no time at all. But yeah, another good episode, George. Another good look at the teams who we're going to be talking about this season, and we'll look forward to next week, I guess, won't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely, James. Another good week, like you said. Another chance to look at another few teams next week as well, which we're looking forward to as well. And the season gets ever closer, doesn't it? So, like you said, it won't be long before we're talking about who scored a great goal and what a great performance. So, yeah, not long to go. But yeah, for now, we'll have to say goodbye and adios. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, adios, everybody.
Adios.
We're breaking it down, bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Summer vibes, we're dancing.